And what I'm going to use is a little tool that is similar to HID attack, hit attack. I'm going to plug in this dongle into this Mac because I'm going to really be attacking the dongle. And the dongle's from vendor A. I'm going to use a mouse from vendor B. Interoperability tends to be very good with these devices. Hey, there we go. We're already connected. And I can bring up this document with my mouse. But these devices tend to, they have power switches. Sometimes they get switched off. Or sometimes, in the case of a keyboard, it's pretty typical. If somebody has a keyboard on a desktop, it's pretty typical that they never turn their keyboard off, but they occasionally turn their computer off, right? So there are often these windows of opportunity where, I've been using my Bluetooth mouse and I turn it off, but I still have a host sitting there waiting to reconnect to it. So I'm just going to run a little attack. I need another dongle to do this. And I'm just going to use a plain dongle and see if I can pretend to be the mouse and spoof some input events into the victim system over there. And so I'm reconfiguring oh, here we go. Hey. Okay. So I was, it turns out that you can not only spoof input events into when you're pretending to be a mouse, but you can even spoof keyboard events, okay? Because they're just HID reports, right? And it may be that a host operating system stack filters things out and is smart enough to know that keystrokes shouldn't come from a mouse. But that's not necessarily the case. And in the case of this dongle, which is in boot mode, it's actually enumerated already to the host as a USB mouse and a USB keyboard. So the host thought there was a keyboard attached all along, right? So what I'm really attacking here is the dongle and its inability to know that keystrokes shouldn't come from a mouse. Note that I'm doing this with knowledge of both the host and device addresses, but not with any knowledge of a link key. Remember that mice aren't even required to support encryption by the Bluetooth HID profile specification. Actually, hosts aren't required to support encryption either, which seems a little silly. But every host that I've seen does support encryption. So I'm going to pop back over to my other machine here for the duration. Yay! It worked. Okay. So once again, beware the boot mode. And also, if you're interested in using these kinds of devices in the most secure manner you can, it's a good idea to check and make sure that your devices actually authenticate each other. They can. They maybe should. But the profile doesn't actually say they absolutely must. So there's nothing broken about this particular mouse and dongle. They're following the HID specification. It's just kind of loose on this point. It allows these devices to create a link key or not. It allows them to use that link key to authenticate each other or not. And there really isn't any way to tell whether your device is getting authenticated unless you do some of these tests. So how do you get the device address that you need in order to try one of these attacks? One easy way is physical inspection. If you can find that sticker, you're golden. Another way is passive monitoring using GR Bluetooth. Another way is inquiry. And inquiry is the process of finding discoverable devices. So if you just go to any Bluetooth device, like my phone, and I go to the Bluetooth menu and I say, like, find nearby devices, what I'm doing is an inquiry. The HCI tool inc command allows you to do an inquiry from the command line. Another way to get addresses is by inspecting the operating system of the host computer. Mike Kershaw has recently released a Kismet BT-Scan plugin, which is a plugin that does inquiry from within Kismet. So all you need is a plain, cheap dongle, plug it into your laptop, run Kismet with the BT Scan plugin, which is included in the most recent release of Kismet, and it finds discoverable Bluetooth devices. So this is kind of a convenient tool. And we had tools that did inquiries before, but this one is integrated with Kismet and integrated with all the GPS tracking and all that kind of fun stuff. So it's a really handy tool. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have used the word scan on this slide because the Bluetooth specification uses the term inquiry scan to mean listening for inquiries, not sending inquiries. But it is sending inquiries to locate devices and get their addresses and names and classes. Also, I've been working on, with Mike's help, the Kismet Bluetooth plugin, which is a second plugin for Kismet that is for integration with GR Bluetooth and the USRP. So I'm going to do a real quick demo of that. This does passive monitoring, so you don't need to know any prior knowledge about a device at all, and it doesn't need to be in discoverable mode in order for you to find it. Let me see if this works. This will be the very first field test of the Kismet Bluetooth plugin. Aren't you excited, Mike? Let's see. It probably won't work the first time, and I don't really know why. Okay, the USRP is on. That's good. Hey, there we go. Okay, so you can see I've got 3 different piconets being monitored here already. One of them I've heard of. So whoever else is running Bluetooth in the room, I don't know, let's see if we can point the antenna around. Can we get anybody? No? Anyone? Oh, there are a couple. Okay, cool. Okay, so that's our first field test of the Kismet Bluetooth plugin. It's very crude. All it does, hey! All it does is count up packets that it's seen from these different addresses. And if you saw my talk last year, you know there are ways to improve on this and fill in the upper half of the device addresses. But really all you need is that lower half in order to initiate some communications with these devices. So let me kill this since it's sucking up 100% of my CPU. And I have a little USRP overrun problem to deal with. So those are some ways that you can use to get these device addresses. And if you're a defender and you are trying to assess your own devices, then it's really easy to get these addresses because you can just inspect them or put them into discovery mode and do an inquiry, and you're good. How do you get a link key is a little bit harder. But again, if you're a defender, you have the advantage because you can just go into an operating system and wherever that OS stores its link keys, like the BlueZ stack stores them in their varlib Bluetooth, and Mac OS stores them in whatever you call those profiles. If you do a defaults command, you can list out your link keys. And so for some, I think my next demo, I'm going to actually be using a link key that I've extracted from a host computer using that technique to test something. But an attacker can potentially get a link key using passive monitoring and cracking a pairing, for example, to determine a link key. And that's a well-known attack that's been around for a while. It's a little hard to execute in practice, but it can be done. And I've done it with the USRP. So it's something that you should probably consider that an attacker would be able to do. Well, if you can connect to a device and pretend to be a host, and if you can connect to a host and pretend to be a device, then the natural thing to try is a man in the middle, right? So I put together this little tool called BT-HID proxy. And this is using plain off-the-shelf dongles and the BlueZ stack on Linux. And what it does is it configures